A weekend parade, but not the kind you're looking for. Round after round of storms will march their way through the middle of the country. What it means for your weekend plans, just ahead. And Felicia Combs alongside meteorologists Lynette Charles and Stephanie Abrams. Steph, it's going to be a stormy weekend for some of us. We're going to have to plan around those storms, and some of them are going to be severe.
So let's get right into it and show you.
Me that 10:30 reservation that I made for us. You're not tagging along for that.
You're going to 10:30 dinner tonight?
No, not tonight. Not tonight. No, tomorrow night though.
Oh my God.
No. That means you start later. That means you fit more meals in throughout the day, right? No. Let's talk about it though, because a lot of us are going to have to plan around the weather. Whether you're planning around the heat that we're looking at underneath that upper level ridge, the jet stream with the dip is bringing some gloomy weather there. Let's focus in on where we have that chance for storms. We've got abundant moisture being pulled north because of this pattern across the southern plains up through the central U.S. A couple different upper disturbances are being steered in, and that is helping to add that little lift that we need to get some of those storms going, to kind of wring the atmosphere out of its moisture as well, and it's got plenty to work with. So we've got that possibility for flash flooding. You can see today that is going to be stretching from, say, Sioux City down through Springfield, Missouri. A bit of a wider area as we look to Saturday, stretching from the Rockies, the foothills of the Rockies, all the way over into Paducah, higher area across the Ozarks. So especially looking at you for portions of Missouri where you have that risk for flooding, and then we're continuing that into Sunday as well. Now we could see, whenever we show this, I always want to make sure we know this is a broad brush forecast. The signaling here is that we could have a couple inches, especially across central Missouri there. But we're definitely going to have locally higher amounts, and that's where we could run into some of those flash flooding issues, especially when you're looking at the rainfall that we've seen over the past 7 days. Wherever you're seeing the yellow, that's at least 3 to 5 inches, the orange 5 to 8 inches. So that is a lot of rain in a very short period of time, and a lot of times the ground can't handle that, but neither can the rivers, the creeks, the streams. Those are all elevated. If you live maybe near a little creek or stream, you've probably noticed that, and now we're going to add more rain to that. That begins later on this evening, overnight tonight, rounds throughout the day on Saturday, and then once again we're seeing more of those rounds of rain Sunday into Monday. So it's kind of like we're just stuck in this very messy pattern. We can't get out of it, and that is all going to add up. Flash flooding possible for the portions of the southern plains for Monday, as well as we add more rain onto that already soggy ground. For, say, Tulsa, Oklahoma, you've got temperatures in the mid-80s on Sunday. That rain is sticking around, Lynette, so it's just one of those kind of times where it's not going to be raining constantly, but you are going to have to keep an eye to the sky and plan around it. It's not going to be a washout.
Yeah.
But it's going to be wet.
It is going to be wet, but just stay weather aware for sure, Felicia. All right, let's talk about the heat.
Kind of a gloomy pattern. We've got rounds and rounds of rain that we're going to have in our forecast. So again, not raining constantly, but the cloud cover and the chance for rain sticking around. Our circulation of our low that's hanging out here around the Great Lakes region. You can see some drier air building in behind that boundary as well. Not going to last super long. We're going to have waves of dryness and rain as we watch showers and storms kind of rotate around this dip in the jet stream, or this low pressure that we were seeing there on the water vapor imagery. So those upper disturbances, they're steered southeast by that dip in the jet stream, and then you'll notice we'll have rounds of clouds and rain that just continue moving through. It's kind of like the spokes on a wheel almost, with that low hanging out there, continuing to move those showers and that cloud cover in. So still seeing some dew points up around the upper 60s in New York, Boston in the 60s, but you'll see that drier air as you look west at Indianapolis and Detroit. That's that drier air building in behind that boundary. Not a lot to speak of in terms of a whole bunch of rain, a few little showers around Pennsylvania right now, but we are expecting more widespread showers as we head through the day today. You can see that filling in across upstate New York, Buffalo. You're getting in on that. And then we'll watch as the rounds of rain continue to kind of rotate through our weekend. You'll notice not a washout by any means. A lot of us are going to spend quite a bit of our Saturday dry, but you'll just have to keep an eye on the forecast when you're planning your weekend events if there's something you want to do outdoors, because with this type of forecast, it's going to be cloudy, kind of gloomy, and not to mention it's also going to be pretty breezy. You'll notice that heading through this weekend. Changing, and that's a problem on a couple different levels. Thanks, Lynette. Well, temperatures are soaring across the Southwest. We've got excessive heat warnings in effect today for places like Tucson, where the heat will top 100 degrees. Triple-digit temperatures can turn deadly if you're not careful. Sergeant Steve Faree with Pima County Search and Rescue has some advice if you're going to get into the out there. water with you than you think you might need when you're talking about heat like this, because man, you don't realize how quickly that one little bottle of water that you're carrying with you that you think is going to be enough for the day is not enough. Or if you can just avoid being out in it, that's great. Look at this, 93 in Denver. Luckily, as you look a little bit farther north, say Denver, Dodge City, you guys are going to see some relief. But places like Vegas, Phoenix, you're stuck in it. Vegas had its earliest 110 degree. It tied for the record for earliest 110 degree temperature yesterday. So we're seeing this happen pretty early. I know when we look at this, it's like, oh, these places are typically hot, but this is kind of exceeding what we would expect for this time of year. Throw in that humidity, the forecast heat index, and you'll see not really seeing much of a change where we've got that dry heat that everyone talks about. But where you look at, say, San Antonio, Dallas, Amarillo, that is adding on a few more degrees to what it's going to feel like. And that is in the shade, guys. When we're talking about these temperatures, whether it's the actual temperature or the feels like temperature, that is in the shade. It's going to be even hotter if you find yourself in the sun. So the heat risk today, whenever you see this, when you're seeing the red for major or the purple for extreme, you're seeing where that's showing up here. Some across southern Nevada, portions of California, a lot across the Four Corners region and into Texas. That is taking into account not only, say, the weather, not only the feels like temperature and the actual temperature, but also, you know, the community that lives there, maybe some of the other things that go into account as well. And this is heat risk completely explained. Whenever the temperatures are posing an elevated risk for heat stress, we're going to see that heat risk go up. The location-specific thresholds are based on the CDC data. So, you know, if there are people who live there who are typically used to the heat, maybe that is taken into account. Factors in extremity, time of the year, and duration of the heat. So if we're seeing this heat that's been stretching out for quite some time, like we've seen in Vegas, that is going to be taken into account. Major impact, stay hydrated and in a cool place. You want to make sure you're not out and about in this. If you found yourself in the red on that map I just showed you, consider moving outdoor activities from the peak heat time. So maybe you love to kind of take an afternoon run. You might want to think about changing that to morning before the sun comes up or right when the sun is going down. Know the also the symptoms of heat exhaustion and heat stroke. It can make all the difference in getting help. Of course, we're back after the break. June gloom, I
63?
think. 63? Yeah, well, no.
In shorts?
I take it back. Just kidding. That's sweater weather. Maybe you can't handle this either. The screeching hymn of a rare turbocharged emergence of 2 cicada broods. So loud, people have called the police to report it. But there's no need to bug out. We won't see them again for another 200 plus years, unless changing weather patterns wake the broods up early. It's a weekend parade, just not the kind you're looking for. We've got round after round of storms that are going to march their way through the whole middle of the country. What it means for your weekend plans just ahead. Steph?
And Florida is...
This is America's Morning Headquarters. I'm meteorologist Felicia Combs, alongside meteorologists Lynette Charles and Stephanie Abrams. Steph, it's going to be a stormy weekend for some of us, but the good news is it's not going to be like constant storminess, just plan around it storminess.
Exactly. So there is...
Around, round for round, not just the severe, but also that risk for flooding. So let's talk about it. We've got our ridge that we've been talking about, our dome of high pressure, our dip in the jet stream. So kind of the tale of two different weather happenings here. And right in the middle of those two is quite often where you get your weather. And this is kind of where we're seeing this as well. We've got plenty of moisture. It's being pulled north. It's like a vacuum of warmth and moisture, pulling that all out of the Gulf, lifting all the way up into the northern plains. And when the atmosphere has that much moisture to work with, all you need is something to trigger some of that rain, get some of those storms going, and you're going to have maybe some flash flooding, maybe some issues, and that's exactly what we're seeing as we have upper level disturbances that are going to move through and trigger that rain. So here's our risk for flash flooding today. You can see that's stretching from portions of Iowa down through much of Missouri, St. Joseph, Kansas City. You're going to be included in that. And then Saturday into Sunday, that risk for flash flooding, especially across the Ozarks over into portions of Kansas. And then we're continuing that for some of the same area as we head into Sunday. So you'll notice it's this round and round and round of rainfall action that's going to add up. Now, as we look at this forecast here, this is a broad brush forecast, a larger area possible of slightly higher rainfall amounts across portions of eastern Kansas, much of Missouri, over into southern Illinois. But this is broad brush. I do think we're going to have some locally higher amounts where we get some of those storms to line up one right after another. And here's part of the problem. If, say, you needed that rain, if it was coming spread out over quite some time, no problem. If the ground was not saturated already. But for a lot of these areas, the ground is already saturated. saturated. In the past 7 days, wherever you see at least the yellow, that's 3 to 5 inches of rain. For a place like, say, Little Rock, you're more than a foot above average in terms of rainfall so far this year. You can see how much rain you've seen in the past week, so we're just going to add more onto that. It's not just the ground that's saturated, but you start to see the creeks and the streams and the rivers become swollen, and that's problematic. And then when you factor in the ground is saturated, you're getting some more rain, you're going to have some storms that could be feisty. You're talking about that possibility for trees coming down. When the ground is this saturated, when you're getting more rain, when you're getting more storms, that risk for trees coming down and causing you more issues continues and really ramps up with the wet ground. The flash flooding possibilities across the southern plains heading into next week, that's something that we're going to watch. But of course, we're also watching that heat, Lynette.
Exactly.
And it's starting in June. That can cause a little gloom for someone, make you worry about that. We've got a different type of June gloom as we're looking north. I love it when we get something like the water vapor loop or the radar or the satellite loop or something and show that to you with what we're also talking about our graphics. So here's what I'm talking about. You can see our upper low that's hanging out here. You can see that counterclockwise circulation that we have going on here, this upper low kind of hanging out around the Great Lakes. And this is the actual water vapor imagery. So this is what's actually happening right now. The orange indicative of slightly drier air. And then we're matching that up with our own maps that we put the low on. So you can see that low. You can see how it's represented here in our forecast. The jet stream's dipping south. You've got that upper level low hanging out. The disturbance is kind of right along that jet stream. That's why quite often we start with wherever the jet stream is. That's where we're looking for what's happening with our weather. You'll notice that these storms kind of just move through storms, rain, and clouds. It's like a wheel, and the spokes on the wheel kind of around that center of low pressure, just rotating in, rotating around. And that's why some of us are going to have, a stretch of really nice weather and then just some showers and storms moving through, maybe some cloud cover hanging out as well. Here's what's happening right now. You can see that drier air trying to build its way in. Detroit, your dew point at 49. Meanwhile, NYC, your dew point at 67, 60 in DC. So still a bit muggy out there. Just a few very, very light showers with some cloud cover hanging around. Better chance for some rain moves in later this afternoon into this evening. You'll notice what places like New York, Philly, you're staying dry today. You've got a mix of sun and clouds for those cities. We'll watch the rain filling in on Saturday into Sunday. So my main point for this weekend across here, you're going to have some sun, you're going to have some cloud cover, but it's certainly not going to be a washout. I don't know if it's fair to call it June gloom, Steph. I think maybe June half gloom.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll go with that. You work on that, Felicia.
To cool off a little bit and you don't have anywhere else to go, you can go there, and we'll need it. We'll definitely need to cool off when you're talking about these temperatures up around 110 in Phoenix, 101 in San Antonio. Vegas actually tied their 2010 record, so they hit 111 degrees yesterday. The old record for the earliest, at least 110 degree day was June 6, 2010. So they broke that yesterday, continuing with the heat across this region. Our forecast heat index, you'll notice it doesn't change when you look at Phoenix and Vegas, and that's because you've got the dry heat there. But as we look at San Antonio, Dallas, Amarillo, that's where you see us tacking on a few degrees when you factor in the humidity, and boy, is there a lot of it. Look at this, Dodge City feeling like 102 as well once you factor in the humidity. So what you're looking at here is our heat risk map. Take a look at it if you're in any of these areas, especially where you see the red and the purple, where you're getting into major and extreme across portions of southern Nevada, California, New Mexico, a big chunk of Texas in major heat risk. Now, what that heat risk takes into account is what you need to be doing when it is this hot, when it's this unsafe. So you've got major impact in the red. You want to stay hydrated in a cool place. Consider moving those outdoor activities to a cooler time of day or maybe postponing them. You just want to make sure that you also know the symptoms of heat exhaustion or heat stroke, because that can get really dangerous very quickly. And if you start feeling those, you want to make sure that you are taking care of yourself, cooling down, and in some cases, getting yourself to, somewhere that can take care of you, a doctor or a medical facility. The UV index for today also extreme for a lot of the South. You see that here from Savannah all the way back through Houston. And what that means is you're going to burn really quickly. This is the type of heat index today and tomorrow that even if you're outside and you're like, oh, I'm going to run outside really quickly and, I don't know, walk around the neighborhood really quickly, you could see yourself getting a burn time. Here's our burn time scale. You burn in less than 15 minutes with the extreme UV index like we have today, so do keep that in mind. Weather gives us all the feels. So now let's check in with our emotions and take a look at our 3-day Feeling the Forecast with Disney and Pixar's new movie, Inside Out 2. And the string of rainy, stormy days over the past couple months. Well, let's get you out the door in the northeast. Good morning. Line of storms to move through. Go have dinner. Just make sure you're home before that second line at like midnight or whatever. So maybe you need like a 9:30 dinner. Okay, let's talk about it because a lot of us are going to be planning whatever we're doing all weekend in this part of the country around the rain, around the storms. Here's what Steph was just showing you. We've got that big messy ridge, big hot ridge. We've got the dip in the jet stream to the east that's creating some mess to the northeast as well. And quite often when you're looking at the jet stream and you have the kind of middle part between that ridge and that trough, that's where you get all of the weather. And that's kind of what we're seeing in the middle part of the country. A rich influx of moisture. The atmosphere has so much moisture to work with, and then it just needs a trigger. So what is going to help trigger some of these storms as we head through the weekend? Some upper level disturbances pulsing through that setup that I just showed you. That is going to wring the atmosphere out, and that is going to bring us rounds and rounds of rain. So for today, that risk for some flash flooding cities like Omaha, St. Joseph, Kansas City, you're in that. And then look at tomorrow. Many of the same areas have at least a slight risk for some flash flooding, but a higher risk across the Ozarks over into Kansas, and then that spreads even farther south. It becomes more widespread by Sunday. The rain's still to come. This is a broad brush forecast that you're looking at here, where you see some of the darker greens, maybe 2 to 3 inches, but I think, especially across portions of Missouri, where you're getting rounds and rounds of heavy rain at times, you could have even more than that, maybe some locally much higher amounts. Now, in the past week, this is the rainfall that we've seen. Anywhere that you see yellow, that's at least 3 to 5 inches. But when you're getting into the oranges and even some reds here across portions of Oklahoma, that's 8 to 12 inches. Radar estimated for a city like Little Rock, that's about 13 inches above average in terms of rainfall so far this year. You don't need that much rain in a short period of time. The creeks are swollen, the rivers are swollen. You're adding this, the ground is already saturated. So you're not just getting the light rain either. As Steph just showed you, that possibility for some storms is there too. So the storms are going to bring some gusty winds along with them, and I guarantee you're going to have a couple trees down here or there. With the ground being this saturated, it kind of saturates the soil. As we know, water is a solvent, so it kind of acts to dissolve the firmness of the soil as well, and then those trees come down more easily when the ground is this saturated and you got some wind. Heading into early next week, that risk for flash flooding across this region, the southern plains, and of course, we're really hoping that this kind of pattern could budge, Lynette, but a lot of us are staying stuck in it, including the heat.
Exactly. We wish that we could get some rain.
But the good news is it's not going to be raining constantly. This is a type of setup where, yes, your weather's going to be influenced, but it's not going to be a constant thing. Now, there are two kind of different maps that we use to tell the weather story quite often when we're telling what you can expect. You've got what's happening now. That's like our satellite, our radar, our water vapor, as you're seeing here, and you can kind of clearly make out where we've got that upper level low. You've got that center of circulation, that counterclockwise circulation, drier air represented by all of the orange. That's building in as well with those lower dew points. So that's the actuality of what's happening in our water vapor. The other type of graphic that we use to tell the story is the ones that we make. We put the low one for you. We put the words on for you. It's representative of the weather story and how we're going to tell it. So it's kind of cool where you can see that low that is actually there in the water vapor that I just showed you, and the low for the forecast and how that's all coming together. That's kind of coming around that dip in the jet stream. You've got the counterclockwise circulation around the low, and in that jet stream, upper level disturbances are kind of pulsing through, helping to kick off some of those showers and storms. So really widely scattered showers, increasing cloud cover as those kind of rounds of showers rotate through. They'll be pulled through, and that means it's not going to be raining constantly. In fact, in New York City, you guys have a pretty fantastic weekend ahead. Just a better chance for some showers on Sunday. You can see that drier air building in, like I was just showing you on that first water vapor map, where we had that orange color, much drier dew points in, say, Chicago or Cleveland and NYC right now behind that boundary. You'll notice a few little showers kind of rolling off some of the lakes here. Buffalo, a few showers around for you, some cloud cover as well. For a lot of us, we're staying dry most of the day today. It's not until later this afternoon for the interior portions of the Northeast. We've got a better chance for some rain. 95 corridor staying dry today. Saturday dry much of the day as well. Sunday's really a better day where we see that coastal area get a better chance for some rain stuff. So certainly not as gloomy as it could be when you're talking about June gloom in the Northeast.
Yeah, not as bad.
Still need a little ski action. There you go. You know where to head. And then if you get too cold and you're over the cold, then you can just like go down in elevation and get into the heat. heat. It's real simple. You can have a little bit of both in one day in some of these places. High temperatures today are toasty. You can see the mid-90s from the southeast coast, places like Charleston, stretching back to the triple digits in Vegas and Fresno and San Angelo as well. Vegas actually breaking their record. So previously their earliest time of getting to 110 degrees was June 6th of 2010. Yesterday they hit 111. So they had a new record high in Vegas yesterday and a new earliest 110 degree day. The forecast heat index for today, this is where you can really tell the difference between where they say, well, it's dry heat and it's a muggy heat. Vegas, Phoenix, no difference. It's a dry heat, but 110 in dry heat is still really hot. But in Dallas, in San Antonio, Amarillo, you've got to tack on a few degrees to the actual temperature to get what it's going to feel like. And guys, that's in the shade. That's why it's so dangerous. You can see our heat risk map today where you're seeing the red, that is major heat risk, the purple or the darker color there, extreme heat risk, which means it's getting pretty dangerous out there. If you find yourself in the major impact category, that red that I was just showing you, you want to make sure you're staying hydrated and in a cool place. Maybe move those outdoor activities from the peak heat of the day. It's just not safe to be out there in the peak heat of the day doing outdoor activities, and be aware of the air quality, which can make a big difference as well. Heat exhaustion, you want to cool yourself off, maybe find some medical help if you need it. Heat stroke, you need to call 911. So you need to know those symptoms, Steph, because it can get dangerous really quickly.
All right, let's have a look.
Waited all week. It's Friday. We got a trip planned and here comes some rain, right? Maybe give yourself a little bit of extra time if you're traveling across interior northeast, Syracuse, Binghamton, Albany, a little bit of rain. It's not going to be raining constantly, but you are going to have those showers around. The roads are going to be wet in some places, and the winds are going to be a bit gusty too. So do keep that in mind. We got our upper low spinning around here. That's going to kind of help to swirl some of those showers and storms through. Slightly drier air building in, but that's not doing much to keep those showers at bay. You can see a couple little rumbles of thunder beginning to build up here. Those storms rolling off the lakes there just to the east of Cleveland. We're going to see this rain fill in a bit more across interior portions of the into the afternoon. A few thunderstorms, as mentioned, gusty winds possible. Much of our Saturday is actually quiet and dry, maybe a bit of cloud cover around, but we start to see another push of rain late Saturday into Sunday. Some of that could be a bit heavy at times, and you can see here, could see some higher amounts in some places.